In the realm of true crime, some cases defy explanation, leaving behind a chilling echo of unanswered questions. Today we delve into one such enigma, the disappearance of renowned violinist Isabella Rossi, a story of talent, obsession, and a mystery shrouded in the whispering walls of a centuries-old concert hall. Get ready to uncover the truth, or as much of it as we can, about the case of the vanishing violinist. Isabella Rossi was a prodigy. From a young age, her fingers danced across the strings of her violin, coaxing out melodies that captivated audiences around the world. She was celebrated for her passion, her artistry, and her ability to breathe life into every note. But beyond the stage, Isabella was an enigma. She was private, almost reclusive, preferring the solitude of her music to the clamor of the social world. Her life revolved around her craft, and her performances at the prestigious Grandi Hall were legendary. The Grandi Hall, built in the late 1800s, was a masterpiece of architecture, known for its acoustics and its rich history. It was also rumored to be haunted, a place where the spirits of past performers lingered, watching and listening. Isabella dismissed these tales as fanciful folklore, but little did she know, the walls of Grandi Hall held secrets far darker than she could imagine. Isabella Rossi was scheduled for a solo performance in Grandi Hall, which had been scheduled for months and was Isabella's most awaited performance. Hours before the performance, she vanished. The night of the performance, the Grandi Hall was buzzing with anticipation. A sold-out crowd eagerly awaited Isabella's arrival. But as the minutes ticked by and the curtain remained drawn, a sense of unease began to settle over the audience. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as the scheduled start time came and went, the anticipation slowly replaced by confusion. The orchestra conductor came out and said that the show would start shortly, but time passed and the curtain remained drawn, and Isabella did not appear. Many audience members began to speculate what could be happening. Others started to leave. Eventually, after what felt like an eternity to the anxious crowd, it was announced that due to an unforeseen circumstance, Isabella Rossi would be unable to perform. The crowd erupted in a mix of disappointment and confusion. Backstage, the atmosphere was one of sheer panic. Isabella was nowhere to be found. Her dressing room was empty, her prized violin lay untouched on the table, and there was no sign of her or any indication of where she might have gone. Her manager had been searching for her but had not found any clues. There was no call, no sign of her departure from the concert hall. It was as if she had disappeared into thin air. It was clear that Isabella did not simply leave on her own accord. This was the beginning of a baffling and disturbing mystery. The local police were immediately called in, and Grandi Hall was placed on lockdown. Every corner of the hall was searched, every witness was questioned, but the investigation yielded nothing. The backstage personnel were all accounted for, and all the doors had been secured for security. There was no evidence of a struggle, no signs of forced entry or exit, no signs of foul play, and no clues as to Isabella's whereabouts. The only thing that the police had was a note that was left on Isabella's piano, an object that stood untouched in her dressing room. The note had scribbled music and the words, "She is mine." The meaning was unclear, but the tone was unsettling. The concert hall staff was questioned, but no one claimed ownership or knowledge of it. Investigators focused on Isabella's personal life, exploring her relationships, her past, and any potential enemies. But Isabella lived a private life and never showed signs of having any personal problems. She was known as a quiet individual, and few people knew much about her life outside of her music. She had few friends and was known to keep to herself. The lack of leads frustrated the investigators, and as days turned into weeks, the case of the vanishing violinist began to grow colder. As the investigation stalled, attention turned to the dark history of Grandi Hall. The hall was rumored to have been the site of several tragedies over the years, including a mysterious death of a famous actress and a series of unexplained accidents. Some whispered of a ghostly presence, a malevolent spirit that haunted the hall's corridors and manipulated its occupants. The ghost stories were dismissed as folklore, but they added a layer of mystery to Isabella's disappearance. Some said that they had seen and heard things in the hallways of Grandi Hall, whispers, footsteps, and moving objects. A number of employees claimed the hallway was haunted by one of the hall's previous residents, a janitor who had been living in the basement of the building for decades. The police, unable to explain Isabella's disappearance, decided to explore Isabella's personal history once more. The police focused on finding out who left the notes for her. Some suspected that the notes may have been left by an obsessed fan of Isabella Rossi, who they had identified as Frederick Muller. Frederick had been sending letters to Isabella for weeks and would often stand outside Isabella's home waiting for her. He often showed up at many of Isabella's concerts. He had a long criminal record of stalking and disturbing the peace, but Isabella did not know Frederick in particular, and there was no sign of him at the concert hall during the night of the incident. He was quickly ruled out. Investigators brought in Frederick Muller, who seemed cooperative. Frederick told the authorities he had been stalking Isabella and had been following her, but he insisted that he meant no harm. Frederick told them that he had been admiring her from afar and that he had been sending her gifts without her knowing about them. The investigator then revealed to him the note from her dressing room. Frederick denied knowing anything about the note. Investigators searched Frederick's house and found Isabella's wallet, her passport, her phone, and some of the letters he had written to her. All of these items had been locked in a safe, which Frederick had given the code to. After hours of questioning, Frederick finally broke down and confessed to the kidnapping. He admitted that he had been obsessed with Isabella for months and had planned to keep her hostage. Frederick said that he had been planning on making her sing for him for days on end and keep her locked up so that no one would see her again. Frederick led the police to an old abandoned mansion on the outskirts of the town. The mansion was dilapidated and in ruins, with a creepy, Gothic atmosphere. There was a single-lane road surrounded by an overgrown forest leading to the mansion. Inside the mansion, the police found Isabella tied up in the basement. She was weak and disoriented but alive. Frederick Muller had been holding her captive for 2 weeks, and he was planning to continue to keep her locked up in the basement. Frederick was immediately taken into custody, and Isabella was rushed to the hospital. The rescue of Isabella Rossi brought a sense of relief to the community, but the trauma of her experience left a lasting scar. It took her months to recover physically and emotionally, and she struggled to come to terms with what had happened to her. The experience left her with a fear of performing in public again. Isabella decided to take time off and spent several months resting and recovering. With the help of her friends and family and her psychologist, she was able to overcome some of the emotional trauma she had endured. Frederick Muller, who had been stalking her for weeks, was sent to prison and was sentenced with a long sentence. Grandi Hall was restored and reopened, but the events had a lasting effect on the business. Fewer shows were scheduled, and the crowds were more scarce. The case of the Vanishing Violinist served as a chilling reminder of the dark side of fame and the potential dangers that lurk beneath the surface of even the most glamorous worlds. It also shed light on the importance of addressing issues like stalking and obsession and the need for increased awareness and protection for individuals at risk. If you or someone you know is struggling with stalking or obsessive behavior, please reach out for help. There are resources available to provide support and guidance. Remember, you are not alone. Thank you for joining us as we explored this disturbing case. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this video to help us raise awareness and advocate for justice. We'll continue to bring you stories that delve into the shadows and shed light on the darkest corners of humanity.